There is a specific kind of quiet that happens at 2 a.m. when you open your phone and start watching Skyline edits. Not because you are bored, not because you cannot sleep, but because something in you needs to be there in that footage, in that sound, in the ghost of a car you have never touched but somehow feel like you know. You have memorized the engine codes. You know the difference between an RB26 and a 2JZ without thinking. You can explain HICAS to someone who has never heard the word, and yet your driveway is empty. Or it holds something practical, something that gets you from one place to another and nothing more. This is not about cars. It never was. You are not broken for wanting something this much. You are not delusional for building a life around an idea you have not yet lived. The people who do this, who love deeply what they do not yet have, are not lost. They are running one of the most sophisticated emotional systems the human mind is capable of. And that system deserves to be understood, not fixed, understood. The first thing to know is this: JDM culture is not really about cars. It is about identity. And identity, psychologically speaking, is something the brain constructs actively out of everything it finds meaningful: music, people, places, objects. When you gravitate towards something, especially something with a subculture, a history, an underground pull, your brain is not just expressing preference. It is building a self. The RX-7, 86, the Evo, the Sylvia, these are not just machines. They carry meaning, rebellion against the mainstream, craft over convenience. A philosophy that says performance is worth the inconvenience, character is worth the impracticality. That philosophy speaks to something in you, and when it does, the brain says, "This is mine," even before you own a single piece of it. This is called identity-based desire. The wanting is not superficial. It is structural. The car becomes a symbol for the version of yourself you are trying to become or trying to protect. But here is the part nobody tells you. The thing that makes the wanting more intense is not having it. There is a psychological phenomenon where scarce or inaccessible objects become more emotionally loaded, not less. The mind does not scale desire to availability. It does the opposite. When something is out of reach financially, practically, logistically, the brain does not let it go. It holds on harder. It builds a richer internal world around it. You do not dream vividly about things you already have. You dream about the gap. For many young men who grew up watching these cars from a distance in magazines, in video games, in films, the gap became a kind of home. And the brain, being remarkably adaptive, learned to live inside that gap without collapsing. It found ways to close the distance emotionally. Even when the physical distance remained, cars, in particular, carry something that matters to this part of the psyche: the idea of competence and power, not aggressive power, not loud power, the quiet kind, the kind that says, "I understand how this works. I built this. I know what this is capable of, and so do I." For men especially, there is a deep psychological thread that connects vehicles to self-efficacy, the belief in one's own ability to produce, to achieve, to master something. When that thread gets activated and cannot be completed when the mastery is desired, but the object of mastery is unavailable, it does not disappear. It internalizes. It becomes a quiet frustration that rarely has a name. It is not jealousy. It is not insecurity. It is an achievement drive with nowhere to land. And that drive does not go away. It finds other surfaces. One of those surfaces is digital. The brain's reward system does not distinguish perfectly between real and symbolic experience. When you watch a perfectly edited Midnight Purple R34 pulling through fog with a specific song underneath it, your nervous system responds. It releases something, a small, real sense of satisfaction, not because you are being deceived, but because the brain is pattern matching. This is connected to something I value, therefore this matters. Video games gave an entire generation a first relationship with JDM cars they could not afford. Gran Turismo was not just a game. It was a first ownership experience, incomplete, yes, but psychologically real in the ways that matter. The brain encoded those experiences as meaningful, and meaning does not evaporate when the console turns off. YouTube did the same. The edits, the builds, the walkarounds, they are not just content. They are a way of staying close to something the mind has already claimed. Underneath all of this, for many people, is something older, a childhood memory, a moment when a car, or the idea of a car, represented something larger: freedom, escape, a future where things were different. Maybe you grew up without much money. Maybe there was a car you saw somewhere and something in you said, one day. The brain stores those moments differently. They get filed not just as memories but as promises, and the psyche does not easily release a promise it made to a younger version of itself. The adult who stays up watching builds and edits is not being immature. He is keeping a covenant. He is saying, I have not forgotten what we wanted. I am still here. That kind of loyalty to a dream is not a weakness. It is one of the more quietly remarkable things a person can do. What all of this creates is a form of emotional regulation in a world that is often unpredictable and loud and exhausting. The JDM world is a familiar room. You know the language. You know the history. You know what you love and why. When you step into that space, even digitally, even just through a video or a forum or a conversation, something in the nervous system settles. It is not escape in the way people sometimes dismiss. It is regulation. It is the brain returning to something safe, something coherent, something that has never let it down, like an old friend who always picks up, like a song that feels exactly right when nothing else does. The idea of the car becomes an anchor. And anchors are not signs of being lost. They are signs that you know what keeps you steady. You do not need to own it to love it. You do not need to justify the hours you have spent thinking about something you cannot yet have. The desire itself is telling you something real about who you are, about what you value, about the version of your life you are still working toward. The mind that builds rich inner worlds around meaningful things is not a mind that is suffering. It is a mind that knows how to stay alive to something beautiful, even when that something is not fully here yet. That is not a flaw in the system. That is the system working exactly as it should. Leave a comment with the car you would own if money wasn't part of the equation.